You are lying on the ground, your back presses against cold earth. The sky above you is pure black. No stars, no moon, nothing. Something moves in the darkness just beyond where your vision ends. You cannot see it, but you can hear it, breathing. For almost 300,000 years, this was not a nightmare. This was every single night. You have spent your entire life surrounded by light. Streetlights, screens, the soft glow of a hallway lamp you forgot to turn off. Darkness for you is an inconvenience, a setting on your phone, something you scroll past without thinking. For your ancestors, darkness was the single most dangerous environment on Earth. Not the open savanna, not the frozen tundra, not the raging river, the dark, and everything that lived inside it. In 1981, a South African paleontologist named C.K. Brain published a study that changed how scientists understood early human survival. He had been excavating Swartkrans Cave, a site roughly 40 kilometers northwest of Johannesburg, where the remains of Australopithecus robustus and early Homo had been found alongside the bones of massive predators. For decades, researchers assumed early humans had killed and eaten these animals. Brain looked closer. He noticed something others had missed. The hominid skulls had puncture marks, perfectly spaced, matching the canine teeth of a leopard exactly, not cut marks from stone tools, not gnawing patterns from hyenas. Leopard fangs driven through the thin bone of the skull, exactly the way leopards kill today, by biting the head and dragging the body up into a tree, away from competitors, away from scavengers, away from anyone who might hear the struggle. Brain's conclusion was devastating. Early humans were not the hunters at the top of the food chain. They were the prey. And leopards were far from the only threat. Donna Hart and Robert Sussman, two American biological anthropologists, spent years compiling evidence for their 2005 book, Man the Hunted. They documented over 120 species of predators that hunted early primates and hominids, eagles large enough to carry a child, crocodiles lurking at every river crossing, massive constrictor snakes, packs of hyenas with bite force strong enough to shatter bone, saber-toothed cats with fangs the length of a human hand. The list was long, and nearly every one of these predators was most active, or exclusively active, at night. Your ancestors did not sit at the top of the food chain. For millions of years, they occupied a dangerous middle position, and when the sun went down, they dropped to the very bottom. Picture what that means. Every evening, as the light faded and the colors of the landscape dissolved into gray and then into black, your ancestors faced a question that had no guaranteed answer. Will I survive until morning? They could not run. Running at night meant tripping over roots, stumbling into holes, breaking an ankle on ground they could not see. They could not fight what they could not find. They could not climb trees fast enough. Leopards are better climbers. Eagles attack from above. Snakes strike from below. And the sounds these predators made, the low rumble of a big cat, the whooping call of hyenas assembling into a pack, those sounds were designed by evolution to trigger the deepest fear circuits in a primate brain. What your ancestors could do was stay still, stay close, and pray that morning came before something found them. Archaeological evidence from sites across Africa and the Middle East shows that early humans gathered in tight, defensive groups at night. Rock overhangs, caves with narrow entrances, shelters where the space was small enough to guard, where an approaching predator would have to come from one direction only, where a few adults with sharp stones could make enough noise to discourage most attackers. But even caves were not safe. Swartkrans Cave itself, the same site where Brain found leopard predation evidence, was not just a shelter. It was a hunting ground. Leopards used the same caves. They dragged their kills inside to eat in peace. Early humans who sheltered there sometimes became the meal themselves, their skulls punctured and carried up into the darkness above. So what did your ancestors actually fear most in the dark? It was not the leopard. It was not the hyena. It was not the eagle or the crocodile or the snake. Those were real threats, specific and identifiable. You could, with experience, learn to hear a leopard breathing. You could smell a hyena pack before it arrived. You could learn which sounds meant danger and which sounds meant nothing. What your ancestors feared most was the thing they could not identify, the footstep that did not match any known animal, the shadow that moved wrong against the cave wall, the sudden absence of sound in a forest that had been alive with insects a moment before, the unknown shape of an unknown threat, made infinite and absolute by total darkness. It was the uncertainty, the not knowing, the inability to confirm whether the space around you was empty or full of teeth. Modern evolutionary psychologists have documented that nyctophobia, the clinical fear of darkness, is one of the most common phobias in children across every culture ever studied. Not taught, not learned from parents, innate, hardwired over hundreds of thousands of years of nights where the failure to fear the dark meant the failure to survive it. Your brain does not panic in the dark because something is there. Your brain panics because it cannot confirm that nothing is there. And for your ancestors, that uncertainty was not a mental glitch. It was the most accurate survival signal their bodies could produce. Then came fire. The controlled use of fire remains one of the most debated topics in archaeology. Some sites like Wonderwork Cave in South Africa show evidence of intentional fire use dating back roughly 1 million years. Others, like Jesher Benat Yaakov in Israel, push controlled burning to around 790,000 years ago. The exact date matters less than the consequence. Whenever humans truly mastered fire, they broke the oldest rule of the natural world. They turned night into something other than darkness. A 2014 study by anthropologist Polly Wiesner examined the conversations of the Jew/Honsi people of the Kalahari Desert, one of the last remaining hunter-gatherer societies on Earth. She recorded what they discussed during the day versus what they discussed around the fire at night. During the day, conversations were practical. Around 34% dealt with economic topics: food, water, resources, logistics. Complaints and conflicts made up another large portion. It was transactional, survival-oriented. At night around the fire, the conversations transformed completely. 81% of nighttime talk was storytelling, myths about the origin of things, accounts of distant relatives and faraway places, gossip about people who were not present, social bonds reinforced through shared narrative, laughter, and imagination. The firelight did not just push back the predators, it created an entirely new kind of human space. A safe zone where, for the first time, your ancestors could stop scanning the darkness and look at each other instead. Where they could teach the children, where they could plan. Where they could mourn the ones the night had taken. Where they could be afraid together instead of alone. Because that was the deepest terror of all, not the dark itself, not even the predators hiding in the dark. The deepest fear was being alone in it. A single human, separated from the group, sitting in absolute darkness, surrounded by unknown sounds, had almost no chance of surviving until sunrise. Humans are not fast enough to outrun a cat, not strong enough to fight a hyena, not equipped with night vision like an owl or echolocation like a bat. What humans have is each other. What kept your ancestors alive was the body pressed against theirs, the hand they could reach for in the black, the voice that whispered, "I am still here." The darkness did not want your ancestors dead. It wanted them separated, isolated, cut off from the one weapon that actually worked, the group. That is why even now you feel it. You are a grown adult, you pay bills, you drive a car, you handle responsibilities your ancestors could never have imagined. But when the lights go out and a floorboard creaks in the hallway, your heart rate spikes before your conscious mind can explain that it was just the house settling. Your pupils dilate, your palms sweat. Adrenaline floods your bloodstream. Your body does not care about logic. Your body remembers what the dark meant for hundreds of thousands of years. Why do horror movies work? Why does a shadow in a doorway make your stomach drop? Why do children, across every culture, every continent, every historical period, cry when the lights turn off? Because every ancestor of yours who did not fear the dark did not survive long enough to become your ancestor. The ones who felt the fear and stayed alert. The ones who huddled close to the others. The ones who kept the fire burning through the longest hours. They are the reason you exist. Every night when you turn off the light and feel that familiar pull of something ancient and irrational tightening in your chest, you are not being childish. You are not being weak. You are carrying the survival instinct of every ancestor who made it through the darkness long enough to have a child, who had a child, who had a child, who eventually had you. That flicker of fear in the dark is the oldest inheritance you will ever own. It kept them alive for hundreds of thousands of years. And somewhere, deep in the architecture of your brain, it is still watching over you.